So Bob, what do you think the long-term effects of the world news scandal might be on the media landscape?
You know, there's clearly some re-regulation in the works in the UK that may well take place if this thing gets big enough, and it does seem to be big enough now. I've been sort of interested in this notion of the tabloids and a sort of tabloid mentality. And in some sense, I think, you know, re-regulating or regulating newspapers in the UK will obviously do damage to those newspapers as commercial enterprises. And I think perhaps the whole scandal suggests that as a businesses, those newspapers in the UK, which seem to be thriving, or may not be thriving quite as much as we thought. And this feels almost like the end of the line of a certain kind of newspaper mentality in the UK. And that would just, and a regulation would just hasten it.
You point out in your column that in Great Britain, they got sort of what we call narrowcasting or cable TV a lot later than we did in the US. How do you think that affected the tabloid landscape?
Well, I think it gave them a lease on life that has disappeared here. I mean, there are differences in the two countries. In the U.S., we had cable and we had you know, narrowcasting all across the board. It happened fairly early, and you know, roughly at the same time, the newspapers began to suffer. Now, the internet came in there too, and that really was in many ways, the death blow to the newspaper business. Not that it's died, but that it's been really hurt in the U.S. And we used to sit here in the U.S. and look at the U.K. and say, look how lively that business is. Look how much, you know, there was a sort of dynamism about that, particularly that tabloid part of the market. And it may well be that the dominance of the BBC and the Channel 4 over there, the fact that you would go there and there'd be 4 channels in the television, gave some space to the tabloids to continue to operate as they always had. And then, of course, you know, then the question becomes, well, why did they misbehave so badly? And again, I wonder whether they misbehaved because they could feel the competitive pressures, not just of other papers, but of television, you know, ironically, you know, created by Rupert Murdoch himself, you know, with B-Sky-B. But you're beginning to feel more channels coming on television, the internet was there, and perhaps some of this was the desperate last throw of the dice.
There are some people saying that part of the problem is that there's too much concentration of media in one company, in News Corp. Do you think that's going to change?
Well, it already has, and News of the World is out of business, and Murdoch has not been able to get a hold of the rest of B-Sky-B. Are there reasons not to have media concentration? Yeah, very good reasons, but that doesn't solve the tabloid issue or the illegality, the criminality, all of those sorts of things. That doesn't resolve those issues.